Everyone dreams about living an uncommon life, but how we define that dream is very different for each of us. And for most, it's a lifelong pursuit. Welcome to the Uncommon Life Project podcast. We're going to introduce you to people who are living that life or enjoying the journey to get there. We're going to also give you some tools, tricks, and tips for starting or accelerating your own efforts to live an uncommon life, a life worth celebrating and savoring. Please welcome your hosts, Bryan Dewhurst and Phillip Ramsey.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Uncommon Life Project. I am your host, Phillip Ramsey.
And I am Bryan Dewhurst.
Thanks for tuning in for another episode. We are so thankful you're here. This episode is going to be really fun for Bryan and I because we're talking about starting a business and the 7 steps you can actually follow to do so. And I wish Bryan and I would have listened to this podcast before we started business. So let's get into it because I think there's just a lot of people that want to go down this path and they just want some structure to be able to follow, an outline to follow. We hope to give you this. Bryan, what are your first thoughts when we start talking about this?
Well, I think, I want to take it back so it's synergistic with everything that we're doing. But I think one of the things we're talking about is 7-source residual income. The most powerful one in our opinion, I would say, is business, just because it's what we've built. And, you look at like a Facebook or a Microsoft, real estate is powerful, but, building a business is a lot bigger. And so anyways, I think that, and it's one of the 7 sources of residual income. And I think it's where we're having a lot of interesting conversations with people. This is where they get stuck.
Yeah, products and services. Good point. I would say that they really, just thinking about somebody's passion, you kind of want to start a business. You don't normally do something like this and start going down this direction if you're not going to start a business. And so just to give you some legs on that, that's why we really like businesses. So let's get into it.
This is also going to be an ebook that is available at our website, www.uncommonwealth.com/gifts. So there's going to be a lot more meat on this bone. If you want the ebook, you will find it there. And that is for podcast listeners only. So without further ado, the 7 steps or 7-step checklist to launching your own business. First, we kind of had, what is the main product or service? And so what have you specialized in? What are you tinkering with? I think of one of our last podcasts with Christina Moffat. She was just cooking cupcakes and baked goods for people at work because the economy was crashing and she was trying to just put smiles on faces.
And they were laying people off.
Right. So it's that thing. And, again, most of the time that we're meeting with people, they already have this thing. Right? It's not something we're telling you to do. It's something that is inside of you that you can't stop thinking about. You keep messing around with. You keep coming back to. Whatever that is, that's what we're talking about.
But I would say the drum beat inside of you, the Jumanji drum. What is that?
Yeah. And so for this, though, it's then I think, we just recently had a conversation with a couple who has that. They're like, we want to go forward. What do we do first? And it's really galvanizing. What is the main product or service or value that you want to provide? And I think the thing that we talk about, and in this PDF or this ebook that we're creating, we have a value ladder. I really wish we would have spent a lot more time thinking through that and valuing that, in our first 7 years than we're trying to essentially go backwards and fill that in.
Yeah. So let's talk about the value ladder, because I have a feeling some of our listeners are like, excuse me, what? And so let's talk through that, because I said the same thing. I wish somebody would have told us this. And basically the value ladder is you want to start with your minimum viable product, meaning something that isn't giving you, your clients or your, participants full access to you because they have to go buy something. And it's a small price, but at least it gives you some kind of cash flow. And Bryan and I feel like when we set up Uncommon Wealth Partners, we did it basically opposite. We were the solution. You wanted to come in and be a client. You want an awesome plan, come on in. We wouldn't even charge you anything at that point. And so it was just a lot of labor, a lot of intellectual property that we were just giving away for free. And that's what we wish we would have done, something a little bit different, and started with a minimum viable product and then started layering it in of maybe more events, or you get some of us, but not complete access to us. And so that's kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about value ladder.
Yeah. And when you look at the ebook and you look at the value ladder, just think of like a staircase. And essentially what we're saying is we put in the top stair first, which, in hindsight, when you quit your job, you just go all in. There's really not any other choice to do this. We're talking more so of like, you have a 9-to-5 job, you have income, and you're trying to launch something on the side without quitting your job. This is kind of the path we're talking about, is like you want to go up the staircase and not down the staircase.
Here's the one stair that they have, like this ebook we keep talking about. So it's like free shipping, book offer. If you have a book, you'll send it to them for free. Then maybe they have the audiobook that you can buy. And then you have a home study course that they can purchase online and kind of go through it themselves. Then you have like a 6-week, some type of like online event. And then you might have a 3-day, or a certification course, or like a 3-day live event. And then the last one is like, if you want me to personally help you, that's a value ladder. So we beat that to death, but I think it's important.
Super important. And so in that, a lot of times we get people, like, it's so daunting because they're viewing it as their only thing, or the only way to monetize the idea or the product is to go to the top of the ladder first. And what we're saying to people is like, don't do that. Put in some of these smaller steps first. Lay the groundwork for you to go full time and get a following and build up a base and build up content, and give people a pathway to follow you, in terms of your content and expertise.
And if you can figure out that small parts of the step of the stairs, you are going to have an exponentially amazing business.
Yes.
So hang on. So that's that. Let's go to 2, trademark, patents.
So I'd say 2 at a high level is really just research. And so it's a matter of looking at who else is out there doing this. Who else out there have you seen that you're drawing inspiration from? Like, one of the other books that we've read and kind of talked about is like there's a red ocean, like everybody's doing it, kind of like nutrition and supplements, the red ocean. It's, kind of like basically there's sharks in the water is the point of the book. And you want to find blue ocean, fresh water, where you have a niche or a sub niche that no one else is operating in. And so this is the research phase. You want to check for people, like if you've got your name, that you want to call this, like, is it trademarked? Does somebody else have it trademarked? Is it spelled the same? What's the URL that you want? Is it a perfect match? Like if you're, you want to start a coffee business, can you get yourcoffee.com, whatever you want to call it specifically .com, or does somebody else already own that? Those are all the things that you need to kind of check out. Google search. Now you need to do a social media search. And then another one of the important ones is just the Secretary of State, and that's actually setting up your legal entity. Does somebody in your state have that legal name? Actually, a previous name that Phillip and I operated under for a very short period of time was taken by some other guy. He was not in our business, but different industry, but it was taken at the Secretary of State level. And so we got out of that rather quickly. And so anyways, those are the types of things that we want you to kind of investigate to see what overlap or, competitors are out there, or if you're going to be stepping on somebody's toes. Because if you do that, the bigger you get, the faster you go, the more likely they are to send you like a cease and desist and to tell you to stop. We own that, intellectual property, or we own that patent, that type of thing.
And we know specific examples of good friends of ours that have been absolutely killing it and getting complete, I would say, synergies in their business, and started to get motivation and started to get enthusiasm. And then they got a cease and desist letter.
Yeah. So it's real.
Just like a punch in the face. So I would really don't minimize this. Great ideas. And then you can work around this research and try to figure out. Secretary of State's a good one for Iowa to go look and just kind of see. And so, yeah. All right. So let's go to 3, which is Brian's favorite. I'll let him talk. Naming
my favorite. I don't know what it is, but I love naming things.
URLs, logos, and kind of like a branding kit. So go ahead, buddy.
Yeah. So this is where you finally lock in. You're like, I've done the research. I've got it all. I'm not infringing on anybody. I'm, kind of like when you watch the old Western movies and they're blazing west on their horses and they each got a flag and they got to go like stake their claim or whatever. This is that in the 21st century.
It is. And I'll say, just like back in the day, the Wild Wild West, things in real estate are getting a little harder to get. Like, for example, Uncommon Wealth was taken and we had to buy that from somebody.
Yeah. A couple grand.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's harder to find this stuff. And so anyways, this is the part where you're actually going to go buy, you're going to buy the URL. You're going to pay someone to do your logo. You're going to get that stuff designed. You're going to get the stuff that you need, packaging. I have it on there as a branding kit, business cards, that type of stuff, your social media profile stuff, all that. You want to get all that stuff nailed down, and your Secretary of State, incorporating your business and getting everything dialed in. So it's like you own it. It's all synergistic. It all complements each other and is the same. And so very important.
Yeah. So that's basically naming it. We do have another, I would say, step here of corporate structure, your tax ID. So we'll talk through that too. So, all right, let's go to number 4. We say client education strategy.
Yeah. And this dovetails back to the value ladder. And normally people would put in here marketing. And
I would say this is not marketing.
Well, and that's my point, is you need to think about it differently. And this is something I think Phillip and I have really changed over the last 2 to 3 years is, obviously we sell stuff. We're a business, but we want to educate people. And we feel like the more that we educate people, I think one of the things you say, Phillip, that I always just love when you say it, it's just like so refreshing. People can make good decisions when they're presented with the right information. Mm-hmm. And, people inherently know what they want and they know what is going to suit them when they're presented with multiple options and they're educated. And so we really just feel our job is to educate people and all the different things that you can do with your money and all the different ways you can build wealth. And that's, one of the big reasons we started the podcast, to just show people how many different ways there are to build wealth and people that are having fun doing it. And so this client education strategy is really that value ladder, and really coming up with how are you going to get your information out there and how are you going to present it in a way that, asserts your expertise and passion and discipline that you've put forth to acquire all this knowledge and understanding.
For sure. And I would say that I get on my pedestal on this because I don't know if you've ever heard of the A, B, and C of sales, always be closing. I think that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I don't know if you like to go into a used car salesman, but no one else does. And so when people try to close you or try to slide over the pen and then push over the piece of paper and just wait for you to sign there, it just seems like the biggest Ponzi. Like, it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And so that's one thing that we have never done in our practice. Is close somebody. In fact, our biggest closing question is like, hey, what do you want our next steps to be? And if it's like, I never want to talk to you two yahoos again, it's like, hey, great, no problem. And it's okay. And so to me, it's really educating people with their different options for our business. And I'm hopeful that this uncommon strategy will be something that you'll kind of take into account of how are you going to be different in the marketplace? Because you just can't be the same. There's too many people out there who probably try to do the same. So we're kind of imploring you to try something different. All right. Number 5, corporate structure and getting your tax ID, which is kind of cool, but also kind of sucks.
Yeah. So this is another one where I think Phillip and I both wish we would have found our corporate structure that we're currently in faster than we did. Mm-hmm. And basically we were LLC before filing as an S Corp. And so I wish, we would have done that sooner, but we're here now.
That was probably from our tax guy that helps us. So we're not tax advisors. We don't give tax advice, but from our perspective and from our, I guess, personal case, it made sense to do that from a different perspective. So both Bryan and I do feel like getting a lawyer involved here is probably worth it. I'm kind of the guy who likes to do things right from the beginning. And so, yeah, it costs a little bit more money for you to get a lawyer, but way worth it at the end and getting everything kind of dialed in. So then you can get that tax ID number. It does cost a little bit, but then also talking to like a tax professional to be like, hey, should I be self-employed? Should I be a sole proprietor? Should I be an LLC, LLP, S Corp, C Corp? There's just a lot of different things, and people can help you. And if you kind of give them and cast the vision to them, they can help you kind of work through which one might be the best one for you.
Yeah. And just asking a ton of questions of like, how can I do this? Not so much like, can I do it? It's like, how can I do it?
Yep.
And so I think pushing your accountant and your attorney is helpful because, they don't want to go, and I'm not saying do anything illegal or shady. It's just like, there are so many different, I don't want to say loopholes because I feel like that makes it, dirtier.
This is what I'll say to try to edify your point without going into the whole thing. Tax people, they just want you to make no money so you don't pay any taxes.
Right.
And like, not helpful. Actually, let's try to pay $1 million worth of tax. Like, switch the mindset on them a little bit. Like, taxes are okay, but help me make a lot of money too. So, and then lawyers, I think, are just always going to tell you the pitfalls of every decision you make, at least in our experience.
Yeah.
And they're not really helpful. Be like, hey, if I were sitting where you were, this is what I would do. I've never really heard of a lot of lawyers do that. I've just heard of like, hey, I think I might go down this route. Yeah, well, you could, but that would be bad, and this would be horrible, and then you're like, well, I'll try this one, and oh, that would be bad. This would be horrible, and so anyway, so you just
where I started.
Yeah, and then here's my favorite part about lawyers. I love you guys, so hear me. But you say like, I'm going to go this way, and they're like, oh yeah, that's a really good idea. Like, well, why weren't you there an hour ago? Why didn't you help me? Anyway, so that's that, and that's what we'll say about that. But I do think they're valuable, and I think we have one down here that I won't spoil the deal. But all right, let's go to 6, bank accounts.
Yeah. So you obviously, if you're going to start a business, you need to have business accounts, checking, savings, credit cards, that type of stuff. And you're going to want that in the business name and tax ID. So you can't do this step until you do the previous step.
Mm-hmm.
And once an attorney and CPA get you set up, then you can open bank accounts, credit cards, et cetera, the things that you're going to need to do business. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just the tax ID is like your social security number, but the business is going to have a different one. And you need to get that and use it. And then kind of the other thing that I think is helpful is just we kind of talk about it in, the terms of a Chinese wall. You really got to isolate your business expenses and business transactions into your business accounts and don't commingle them into your personal accounts, credit cards, that type of stuff. Because if you're not keeping good books and records, it gets really muddy water at the end of the year. And as you grow, it's just a mess,
Guys, this is like, we need to yell this from the rooftops. Like, it is a mess. Try to keep that iron wall up and don't commingle the accounts. Have a business account, have a personal account. So our industry is really weird because we have a securities license, and so we have to get paid through our personal social security number, which I have like a specific swing account, I call it. So I get paid personally and it goes straight over to the corporation. So it's pretty easy from the accountant standpoint, but I'm telling you, you guys mess that up once or twice and it just gets ugly quick. So try to keep that iron wall up, man, from experience.
Mm-hmm.
Do that. And then the last one is books and accounting.
Yeah. This one's a little different. It sounds the same, but it's actually different.
It really is. So first of all, let's just talk about, there's kind of 2 types of accounting. And Bryan, you do a really good job of walking through this. So go ahead.
Well, I call it the gray.
Yep.
So the first, like 0.6 is like the cash, like the cash flow of the deal. Then there's another side of it that's the actual accounting of it.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to kind of think of it in two different ledgers. And so in this, and why I put books in accounting is a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm going to set up a business or we're going to start doing this and this. And it's like, well, how are you going to track that? Because you're going to have thousands of transactions.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, how are you going to, on a monthly basis, balance everything, account for everything, and then pay people, like payroll, that type of stuff. And so people just don't appreciate that, I think, as much. We had a gentleman evaluating a franchise, and it's like, is the franchise going to provide the accounting software or the point of sale software to, people to sign up for your business and buy stuff from you, or is that something that you have to figure out? Because it's a huge deal. I mean, the business was projected to be netting, $750,000, and by year 2 or 3, well, you don't want to switch systems. If you have that type of growth in front of you, you want to be on that system from day one and know how to do reporting and how to do, handle everything the proper way. So there's no mistakes.
Yep.
And so this is the actual bookkeeping, the accounting, the payroll, more of the back end, as opposed to just someone paid me and it went into my bank account.
Yep. And then I think there's another side to this accounting, and it's more of like business evaluation, or like, how am I going to audit my own business for myself? Knowing like, how much is an average client worth? What is the biggest profit for me and my business? Like, that's kind of a different kind of accounting. I think it's important, but this one is like having an audited financial CPA or an accountant doing your, I would say, books and records. I think that's so valuable. And here's why. Because when you start this uncommon path and you start a business, every bank looks at you like you're a crook. Like, they're like, you're not using my money, because they feel like you're not legit, blah, blah, blah. You need to be in business for 2 years so I can truly see that you're not going to go under. Because like the statistics are pretty high that business fail. And so to have audited financials, I think really gives you credibility right away. And so personal experience, we have audited financials from day one of our personal corporation, my wife and I, and then from our Uncommon Wealth. And then I work on that every month as I go line by line, and then I send it over to my accountant. Then Bryan does more of the, I would say, profit of our book and kind of do some evaluation on that kind of stuff, which is super helpful for us when we're talking about our business. But when I get this report back from our accountant, I really don't look at it, but I put it in the binder. And then personally, when we were going to go and buy a house, we weren't in business for 2 years yet, but we had audited financials. And so they could figure out like all the dollars in and out, and we got the loan. So that was a huge thing that I was so grateful we had. And it made us look way more credible to the bank. So I would say having audited financials, although it's an investment for sure, it does make you more credible in the banks. So,
yeah. And I think too, the last point on that is if, the tough part about owning a business, especially in the first, I would say 7 to 10 years, depending on your trajectory and all that, but is, there's not that nice little quarterly statement like your 401k that tells you how much it's worth.
Good point.
And so the more you track your numbers and the more, accountable you are to what's actually happening in your business, the more confident not only you're going to be, and what the value potentially is, but what the, other people, when they start to look, mortgage lenders, commercial lenders, if you were to get in a merger situation or something happens and you have to sell your business, operating with that end in mind, Phillip and I have no intention of selling our business, but things come up and it's good to know what that number is. And then just psychologically of like, man, we don't have as much in our 401k as other people, but we have this other asset over here.
Yeah.
We're pouring our blood, sweat, and tears into. It's helpful to know ballpark wise of like, oh, there might actually be a value to that.
Absolutely. Great point.
And so just psychologically, it's really important to know your numbers. And I think some of the things we've talked about, in articles, I think we did an episode on just financial guilt and shame. One of the first things that starts when you're in that is not knowing your numbers and not wanting to look each month at what's actually happening in your business. And if you're there, please ask for help. We're here to help. Like, just get help. Like, don't go down that path very long because it's dangerous.
Yeah.
And, yeah, you just want you to know you're not alone. And so,
Yeah, I would say too, it's just so valuable just to be around like-minded people that are going down this path of starting their own business. Asking for mentors and help is always, I think, so needed. And I think that's probably my pride is probably not doing that as much, but we're definitely right here. So the 7-step checklist to launching your business, we'll just kind of go through them quick. What is the main product or service? Get your trademark, do your research, patent name, do some research on, security of state. Number 3, name, URL, logo, some type of kit that you could put together, maybe business cards, that kind of stuff, websites. And then number 4 is client education strategy. Not marketing, but just how are you going to conduct yourself in front of clients? Creating the value ladder we talked about. Number 5 is corporate structure, tax ID. Number 6 is bank accounts, credit cards, etc. And number 7 is books and accounting for your business. So hopefully that gives you a little roadmap to starting your own business. We do think it's very exciting. It's almost like naming a child or or doing something amazing. There is some kind of satisfaction you get from doing something like this. And at the end of the rainbow, yeah, it's hard work, but man, I wouldn't have it either way. Like if somebody said, "Hey, I'll give you $500,000 in a 401k, or you can have uncommon wealth," I'd be like, over and over, give me uncommon wealth. Thank you very much. So
definitely.
So yes, thank you for listening. That is our 25 minutes for today. Man, we really value having you as a guest. Again, if you'd like this ebook or any other ebooks that we have, please go to uncommonwealth.com/gift. That'll be for you. You just have to put your email in, and you can have access to that. So thank you for listening. You've been listening to the Uncommon Life Project. I've been your host, Phillip Ramsey.
And I'm Bryan Dewhurst. Thank you so much for listening.
Goodbye.
That's all for this episode of the Uncommon Life Project, brought to you by Uncommon Wealth Partners. Be sure to visit uncommonwealth.com to learn more about our services. Don't miss an episode as we introduce you to inspiring people who are actively pursuing an uncommon life.